Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Tarot for Our Times. Today, I'm going to depart from the usual format, and I'm going to focus on Hunter Biden since he was in the news this week with his dramatic entrance into the House of Representatives Oversight Committee, and but I want to present it in a different way because as a recovering person myself, I really wanted to look at him from the aspect of his addictions and his recovery and his relapses and that sort of thing. So I have a few notes so I don't forget anything. So I did look at I did go on the internet and I looked at his bio and kind of went through the journey of his addiction, his alcoholism, and his relapses, many relapses over the years. And this time, I believe from 2019, he's in June, he's coming up on 5 years, which I believe that's the most time that he has had. So there's always hope. But I do have to address the crack cocaine element of this. And from having lived in the East Village in New York and knowing many addicts and kind of being in that scene of drinking and drugging and all that sort of thing myself, I learned a thing or two. But when I got into recovery, many of quite a few of the people that I met from the main meetings that I went to had gone to school and were counselors in substance abuse. And what I learned is that the difference between getting addicted to crack and getting addicted to heroin is that heroin doesn't happen right away. It's kind of a progression. But it does progress to the point where, oops, you realize you're starting to get sick and this sort of thing. With crack cocaine, it's very, very fast. I've heard people say that you can take one hit off the pipe and the physical cravings can begin. So it's a really, really serious addiction. And I can tell you from going to meetings over the years that there are quite a few people in AA who have not only the problem with alcohol, but also that is an addiction. And I found that for people coming to meetings and then they disappear and then they come back after a relapse, that my very unscientific poll just from going to meetings has told me that the greater majority of them were addicted to crack cocaine. So that would explain a lot of it's a really, really ugly addiction too. So I know that when I was living in the East Village, which New York, which is back at then, I'm sure it's still true today, which is has the highest addiction problem of any of the precincts in North America. And now the only difference is that people pay a lot more rent for that. But at any rate, when I was leaving to move to California in '85, it was just people were going from freebasing to doing crack, and I moved out, and I've thought, boy, I really moved out of that place at the nick of time because people were really starting to smoke the rock, and then I thought, as a old friend of mine from AA used to say, there but for the grace of W.C. Fields go I. So I don't know that if I had lived there any longer, but I figured I was, the chances were not that bad. And he just shows that anybody from the poorest person to a person with some wealth and privilege like he had are vulnerable to that. And in a way that even though, when you're at his social status, you can have your enablers that may help save you from, some justice things. it's kind of worse in a way because you do have more enablers. That's why so many people in Hollywood, for instance, have had really a terrible time getting sober, is because of the people that are surrounding them that are very glad to feed their addiction. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. So I do have to say, in his credit, that because this is how I thought of it in those terms last summer when they yanked his plea bargain. He stayed clean and sober through that. Bless his heart, because I have a feeling that in his recovery over the years, it took a lot less for him to go into relapse. But that's the weird thing about addiction. So I'm going to do some very short mini readings. But if you saw the thumbnail, which this is the card I think of for him. It has a couple of has a couple of meanings. First of all, if you're looking at recovery, it's the card of hitting bottom. It's just like one thing after another has happened until you're just done. You're just done, and you can't get any lower. And as you can see, the man's face is pointed towards the sea and the sky, and you can see the sun is coming up. So that's the hope, that after that is recovery. I also see this in another meaning as him being treated more harshly because of who he is, and how a perfectly reasonable plea deal was done. And what happened was it was taken from him. So there's a lot of stabbing in the back. So that's kind of my focus card for him. Now we're going to get to the hypocrisy of the our Republican House of Representatives as far as substance abuse goes. And first thing is that there was about a year ago when there was a lot of that drama with the Speaker of the House and that sort of thing, that they had very long sessions of Congress. Well, there were things that were sort of dribbling out of social media, saying reporters saying that going back for the evening session after dinner, that the smell of booze, right, and it was probably both parties too. I won't just single out the Republicans, but both parties. That it was so strong, I thought that maybe if I walked through there at that time, I might have had to change my sobriety date. So that's something that's always gone on. So for them to cast aspersions to him is very hypocritical. So there is one thing that happened last summer that they just jumped all over, and that was the coke that was found in a cubby hole in a place where everybody goes through, tourists and staff and this and that, and they have these cubby holes where you can put your electronics that you're not allowed to have going through the White House and that sort of thing. And they found a bag of cocaine, so everybody's trying to pin it on him. Well, I've got a big news flash. People don't that stuff is so expensive. People do not carelessly leave bags of that around. So what happened with that was they did a very deep, the FBI and the DEA and all these, all the agencies did a very deep forensic dive into the baggie. And alibi-wise, the whole family, it was 4th of July weekend, and the whole family left, I guess, around Thursday to go to Camp David. So there was nobody there. And in between that, the exit and their return, that's when the bag of coke was, with the white powder, which turned out to be coke, was discovered. So they could find no fingerprints or touch DNA. So what I was thinking from that point was, could it have been a Confederate of one of those Freedom Caucus people from the House that might have gotten one of their buddies as they're wearing, gloves. Maybe they got the little old lady that still wears gloves or something like that to slip, just to kind of slip that little baggie out so they could blame him. That was known. Of course, they're too chicken on the news to present that possibility, but that has been really, they couldn't find a fingerprint. They couldn't find touch DNA or anything to pin this on anybody. So I really feel as though I'd like to do a very quick read to see if let's see, I hope my pendulum is just, oh good, Mr. Pendulum is handy too. So I might do this with the pendulum. Is if there is something nefarious and suspicious about that, because people just don't. If someone is hooked on coke, I promise you, it's like leaving, like deliberately leaving a couple of $100 bills and not picking them up on the way out. Okay, so let's see what we have about that. So we have the 8 of Cups in reverse. I should put the laptop down a little bit. We have the 8 of Cups in reverse. Let's see. Okay, woo, I just lost my pendulum. Okay, oh no, there it is. Okay, we got the 8 of Cups in reverse. And then we have, oh, interesting, the 7 of Cups. And then we have the 9 of Cups in reverse. It's interesting, and I did a very good shuffle on this deck. It's very interesting the cups come up because they represent emotions, intuition, and in readings of this kind, they can also represent mental illness in reverse, mental illness and substance abuse. So this is kind of, no major arcana showed up for a definite yes, but I'm going to say that what I see in these 3 cards makes this highly suspect. So I think what this is talking about is that with this figure that, somebody did, and it may not have been someone necessarily connected directly with the Freedom Caucus, but this is telling me that perhaps it was someone that was sympathetic towards them, and they were very like MAGA emotional and thought maybe they would just it probably stole their brother's bag out of his stash or something like that. That thought maybe they would leave it there so that the blame would be put on Hunter Biden. Although I'm thinking if there is a connection with one of them, that it may not be a real close connection, that it could be like a friend of a friend. But so this is a upright or reverse. This is about walking away. So I'm feeling as though whoever did this, it was kind of like an emotional release, like, oh, we're gonna get them, we're gonna own them, I'm going to drop it, and I'm going to go my merry way back to my family and into obscurity. Although the 7 of Cups did give, whether this was or wasn't direct, I think it might have been, if it did come from someone in the Freedom Caucus, it was just sort of like on a whim that someone said, yeah, go ahead and do this. But they took advantage of this, and it's to throw, again, this is what they're really good at, is throwing the big smoke screen up so people really don't know what's going on, and taking their attention from other things like, things about that whole mess with the speakers and Trump's legal problems and this sort of thing. So they took the story of the coke being left and knowing the medium would just be off and running just as a diversion thing. So then we have the 9 of Cups in reverse, which I I really feel that this is something that is it takes people out of their comfort zone for a while, or that maybe that also that this means that things didn't quite work out as it was planned. So any kind of happiness they could have gotten from this is kind of gone with the fact is that the story died pretty quickly because they could find nothing there, and to try to, they have better things to do than to comb the nation for somebody that left a little baggie of Coke there. So okay, so we've got that whole thing. So delving a little bit deeper into the hypocrisy is that a lot of our people in that legislative body do have they do have some substance abuse issues, and I think it really goes to there we go, I found it. And it really comes down to there's an old first time I heard it was in AA was like one finger, you point one finger at someone and there are 10 pointing back at you. And so I feel that a lot of the subtext of what's been going on with Hunter Biden is that whole thing of they point the finger, yet another one is pointing back to them. And so there have been the stories over the years. So I'm going to be getting to one of our more salacious and interesting stories. And the cup for the Republicans and in the House of Representatives that are pointing the finger is our friend, the Ace of Cups in reverse. So when the Ace of Cups in reverse, it's all about emotional drama, substance abuse, mental illness, and there's not much joy in it. But it's when this comes up, it's creating drama to create drama, and a lot of this is very similar to what happens in homes where there's a lot of alcoholism and drug abuse too. It's like it's being addicted to substances, but it's also being addicted to drama. So to me, that's what the House of Representatives is. So that brings us to our friend. Do you remember him? That kid, Madison Cawthorn, who kind of let the cat out of the bag that someone had invited him to a party with sex, which is just another word for orgy, invited him to an orgy. He also says that he had seen people doing coke. I mean, right in front of him, and the powers that be, McCarthy and those people, came down on him and said, well, if you're going to blame, they tried to set a trap for him. They said, if you're going to blame people, you got to name names. So of course, if he did, there would have been a huge lawsuit over that. So they were trying to track him. So I guess that this guy is not the sharpest knife in the drawer, and he kind of let that cat out of the bag. But it's nothing that I would say that people haven't been talking about in Washington for years. It's been out there in the realm of gossip, and all kinds of scandals with prostitutes and this and that. So Congress and both parties is pretty much known for that. But he did seem to focus on the Freedom Caucus, and I would say that as far as that goes, it certainly wasn't going to be the squad that invited him to those parties, because all those caucuses have become like high school cliques. So it would have been because he was like really on board with all that crazy election fraud and all that kind of nonsense. So it would have had to, if this is true and he got the invite, it would have had to have been from somebody from the Freedom Caucus. So, so let's see okay. So I think what I want to do is first do a little bit of a read on the Congress abuse of drugs and alcohol that has been leaking out in the rumor mill, and then we'll get to her, that kid, in a minute. So okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of a shuffle here, and see what the story is with people in Congress that are how that the energy, that all this energy behind all of that, because I've just heard over the years that going into, especially sometime after lunch, it's a little bit like this, or going in after that, they're working long hours and they come back quite cocktailed, and it's kind, these guys are making laws that affect our lives. So, which, when you put this all together, it certainly does seem a lot worse than the Hunter Biden thing. So let's see here. I'm going to put this down so we can see what's going on. Took me forever. Oh, Judgment in reverse. Very interesting. The Nine of Pentacles and the Nine of Swords, the Insomnia card in reverse. Okay. Yeah, this is not too surprising. The Judgment in reverse is that's telling me that what they're doing, and I think people may start to get the message of this. What, especially in this card, what this is saying is that in order for them not to be judged for all of these stories that have been going around for years, what they're doing is that they're throwing the judgment on someone else. And who better than someone who's really been struggling with addiction for most of his adult, since he was in college. So yeah, let's throw the blame on them. And then what they're doing, this is all about protecting their wealth. And when you're dealing with people with addictions, who I think there's quite a few of them in the House and in the Senate too, but since this thing happened in the House, which is the more dysfunctional branch, that's where my concentration will be. We've got the Nine of Pentacles, and what I see this is and especially in this one, is the woman in the gilded cage. And you can see with all of these coins that in effect, in this deck, she's holding the bird. The bird is telling her, you can be free if you change your values on material things, which is what the Pentacles, that's all about. So with her, I think it represents that these people have gotten so much, they've feathered their nests with the law, making the deals with the lobbyists, that in a matter of fact is that some of them are so kind of trapped that this probably goes against what their constituents want and more of what corporate America would rather have, which is to the detriment of middle-class working people. But they have put themselves in this cage so much, and whatever money they're getting, they do need the money to feed these habits and to, as you can see, with the and protect them from families and this sort of thing, finding out. But the bird is saying, you know what, if you change, you could free yourself of this. But this lady here doesn't look like she's really ready to do that too soon. So this one's really important, because the Nine of Swords is about it's about worrying, insomnia. And it's interesting because in other decks, this is the swords are usually in the form of Venetian blinds up on the wall. But on this one, it's like these thoughts are really coming in for the kill now. And either upright or reverse. This is a very disturbing card in that their illusions and their fantasies could be really coming back to haunt them. But since it's in reverse, I'm getting a sense that they're in a lot of denial about a lot of this stuff that's going to be coming out about them. that they don't realize how they're going to get burned or cut or whatever. So this is in the process of happening, but that, maybe they're using substances so they can numb the feeling that they cannot go on like they have been going on. So I'm feeling as though I want to do just a little bit of a clarification on this one. Okay. Yeah, they're just going to keep going on the Chariot. They're just going to keep going on like they're going on. Um, these sphinxes are very solid. They think they're moving, but this deck of the Chariot weighs tons. So they think they're moving, but they're really not moving, and they're sticking to their old stuff like abortion, this and that. So they're sticking to things that are very unpopular, that people, the constituents are really not with them. So this is so what this is telling me is that a lot of and nobody looks at this, or that I can see looks at that, a lot of this with their senses being clouded by alcohol and drugs, they're just digging their heels in and going on as usual, not realizing how they're very self-destructive this is. So I would say wait and see what happens in the next election. Apparently they haven't learned their lessons from the 2022 midterm, and now they've only got a 2-seat majority, and that's like hanging by a thread. That could really be gone before they know it. So that, to me, that's the general energy. And I'm saying that probably a good many of them are not don't have these substance abuse issues, but I'm going to say that enough of them do, that it really does mess things up. It's sort of like, I want to say that fascism and booze just don't mix too well. So at any rate, getting back to our Madison Cawthorn, talking about these coke fueled orgies and kind of the energy about it and how true they are. So I'm going to get my pendulum, if I can find it, get the let's see what the energy is. Sometimes there may be truth to it, but they stopped confronting him about it, and they just yanked all the money, and he got primaried. So that's how they dealt with him. In a sense, you have to kind of give them credit for really doing it in a way to kind of shut him up and get him out of there without them being directly involved. So let's see what this whole thing with what he has said about what's what's going on and how true it is, or what's the energy. Okay, the Queen of Cups. Okay, she's in an up. Oh, here we go. Yeah, that's the Five of Swords. Okay, this is starting to the Eight of Pentacles. Okay. So, okay. Okay, so I what I'm getting from this is that this is telling me there's probably some truth to it, although who's involved, what's involved, I'm that it's hard. I mean, I wouldn't be naming names, but I think that it's, the probably Freedom Caucus and some others. It's probably their own clique, and I'm not saying everybody in that clique, but probably a good number of them. So I'm going to say what they did with the Queen of Cups is, I'm going to say that they, after their initial freak out, they probably approached him very cautiously and with compassion, and like your mother saying, we don't talk about, I know you mean well, but we don't talk about those things. So they tried that. And then the Five of Swords is here. He's got all this information, but they just desert him. They just absolutely desert him, which is telling me that when that sort of, instead of confronting it and saying, it isn't truth, they kind of circle the wagons and say we really can't be talking about this, but we've got to isolate him. So that's pretty much what they did. So here he is, just alone, holding the bag, and as I say, they withheld money, that sort of thing. So when he's gone, I may have to put down another card or two. So when he's gone, they kind of they're back at the drawing board to do other things. And this is probably like, oh, Hunter Biden. Okay, let's get back to Hunter Biden, the laptop, and all this kind of nonsense. So I have to give them credit. They did that pretty successfully but I don't think that story is going to die. So let's see what we have coming up next. We have the Knight of Wands. Okay. This is a young energy, kind of a loose cannon. I mean, even upright, he can pretty much go galloping off of his horse half cocked, but I would say that in this case, in reverse, really out of control. I'm getting a sense that there could be some other younger person, maybe not associated with them, that's just, or probably associated with them, that there's another one waiting in the wings, that maybe it's like when Johnson was, who'd heard of him, and then boom, all of a sudden. I think it could be something like that. So that's telling me that this scandal may have a way of rearing its ugly head again, and it may be someone that's even a looser cannon than Madison Boy was. So I would say that it's kind of over, but these pentacles here, they're kind of fly. I mean, they're at the drawing board, but everything's just sort of like floating around, and it's kind of like not very well organized and maybe not planned. So I don't know. I'm feeling like this, because this is a very summer card, that somebody's going to slip, something's going to slip, and then this scandal could be very well re-emerging. So, okay. Now I want to get back to the main person of this reading is, and I was thinking, God, I wonder, with all that he's going through, I wonder how Hunter Biden is going to be coping. Now, I'm not going to do a read on whether he's going to have a relapse or not, because that is such a personal decision of his. I don't even want to put it out there, but I'm just going to want to do a little bit of a read on his emotional state. I would say so far so good. I loved what he did this week by walking in and saying, you want to question me? Here I am, question me. And I think he's given in a little bit further. I would say he was also sober enough to pick a really good legal team, that a lot of that came from them. And so I would say that as far as he goes so far, and I'll tell you, when it comes to the mixture of alcohol and crack cocaine, it gives one day at a time a whole new meaning, because of the seriousness of those, because he was, downing a gallon of vodka. And I will say that he's made some really, like, who makes good choices when they're the throes of addiction. He's made some very, very bad choices. But I do have to say that he has, the 10th step in the 12 steps is that one about making restitution. After you've seen how you've screwed up your life in the previous steps, you continue to take your personal inventory and go back and correct them. So he's paid back all of those taxes and everything. And so I pick up as a psychic that he's been working very hard to, to right all the bad decisions that he has made. And even being kind of singled out as, oh, we're not, so far that we're not going to treat him special. It's the pendulum has swung the other way. So I just want to see where is he at and how is he doing as far as coping with all of this? Because I'm telling you, people, I've heard all of the stories, and his story was very, very not that uncommon. In my early days, when I went to those meetings where they talk about their story, and going to those conferences too, is that his story isn't that uncommon. I've heard it a lot of times, but you kind of wonder how is his, maybe it's because it's from one recovering person to another we're all concerned about each other. It's kind of like, how is he doing? And so I'm going to put down some cards with that. So we've got the Knight of Wands upright, and followed by the King of Wands. This is very interesting. Oops, let me put this down so you can see what I'm doing here. The Prince of Wands, the King of Wands. Okay. And oh boy, I tell you, you cannot make this stuff up. You cannot make it up. Okay, this is so, I swear I would have, if this is amazing to me. Okay, the Knight of Wands is the young, rash person. And then this is kind of in his past. He kind of gallops through life, makes some, without kind of lighting that torch and riding that horse as fast as he can without thinking. God, he's even riding from a volcano. He's riding from this volcano, which I think represents the wreckage that he has left in his wake, which I'm sure has been, well, it has been plenty of it because we see his whole life. He doesn't have the privilege of anonymity like maybe the rest of us do. So here he is charging along. This is very interesting. The King of Wands is a very inspiring leader. This is the passionate Knight of Wands who is really matured into the king. And while that fire and that passion still exists, it's under control. And that this person has the kid. I love how they tell a story. The King of Wands has really learned from a lot of his mistakes, and is able to use that wisdom and help others, and to have some leadership. Now, I'm not saying he's going to become, I don't think he has any interest in following his father's footsteps whatsoever, but I am seeing that if he can maintain his sobriety, get through all of this, this is sort of telling me I don't think he's going to see prison time. I have gotten I might do a quick read on that, but I have gotten a psychic hit that that stuff in California, I'm seeing hung juries and prosecutors who say, I don't think we have the energy to do this again, because we're just going to get one hung jury after another. So I'm sort of seeing lack of evidence, hung juries, he paid his taxes back. Well, if we're going to go after him, let's go after the rest of Congress and everybody in government and the heads of industry and this and that. Okay, so I'm seeing him really, really learning his lessons, and really being able to help people and to be a leader of some kind. Now, whether it's in business, or I understand that he's painting, which has been very helpful for his recovery. I do believe he's an Aquarian, so that creative thing, it kind of makes sense. So I'm feeling as though that if he continues to make better choices, stays sober, and gets the therapy and all this sort of thing, that there are really, really good things ahead for him. And he seems to be very determined This is about coming up that regardless of what happens, this is telling me he's going to avoid getting, if things don't quite go his way, that he's going to avoid the pity pot. Because when this Eight of Swords is upright, then we'll show her upright. This is delusional thoughts, making your own prison. She's got the blindfold on, but she feels she's trapped, but if she can choose to get out of this. When this is in reverse, it's kind of like going there, but saying at the same time, not this time. That hasn't worked for me before. So I'm really not going to go into the big self-pity thing. So that's really, really important that because that's going to be very different than what he's done in the past. So let me see here. We've got the Two of Pentacles in reverse. So it's when this is upright, it's all like, trying to find the balance, that sort of thing. I'm going to say that and this is very true with alcoholics, addicts, and that sort of thing, is that money and material things become very important. They feel kind of entitled to it. What this is telling me is that since this is in reverse, he's not going to see with this deck, this guy here, there's the rainbow between the pentacles, which means that that's going to bring him the happiness. Well, if I can only get a balance on this, it's going to bring me happiness. I'm feeling as though his whole mindset about that is going to change, that there will be a real shift in value. So as far as I can't tell you how the legal thing is going to turn out, but I really do. I am sensing I really am sensing a hung jury. But I think what I want to do real quickly, since I have that other deck, my traditional deck shuffled, I think I want to pull one card to see the energy of his, if I can. I'll see if I can leave it. I'll see what is the energy of what's coming up with his court cases are. So we have, I think I do have to do a little bit of a spread on this. Okay, so we have the Four of Pentacles, which is talking about Congress and the DOJ being kind of stubborn about this. We got to treat him more harshly because he's the president's son. And this is interesting. I really think that there could be a witness that lies and perjures himself in these things. And I think as a result of that, this tells me it's going to backfire as people kind of leave and this sort of gets discovered. So let's see one more. I think I think I guess if you look at this recovery thing, it's like the Knight of Pentacles, it's like easy does, the big saying in AA, easy does it. It's like, take it slow and steady, one step at a time, one day at a time, and that you're on this workhorse. You've given up these fiery horses of the Knights of Swords and rods. Then you take it slow and easy and do the next indicated thing. It's saying, however this turns out, I'm going to be okay. And I always see this as I've always seen the Knight of Pentacles. I've seen the Knight of Pentacles as the Aesop's legend, the fable of the tortoise and the hare. This is the tortoise. The other knights are the hare. So they're running and they kind of come back and taunt him and run around circles, but he wins the race. That's the big thing. He wins the race. So in the end, regardless of what will happen, I do see that there will be some kind of a win, but maybe not the win that his old addictive self. So I would say if he comports himself in the way that he has this past week, it's kind of like he's saying, I'm really cleaned up my act, but don't think I'm going to be just this docile thing that you can walk all over either. So to me, that's incredibly healthy. And as I say, as a recovering person myself, I have to say that my heart really does go out to him. And I guess I probably, if you want to look at his behavior, which I think was dignified compared to Marjorie Taylor Greene's this past week, and what Lauren Boebert has been doing, speaking of, and I don't know about her drinking habits, but I will tell you that her performance in the theater of a couple months ago, whenever that was, with that really kind of lewd behavior, doesn't really happen with too many sober people unless they have severe mental issues. So for her and the others to be casting, judgment on him, really does show the hypocrisy. So as I say, my heart goes out to him. I'm really sending positive vibes. So I ask all of you who are healers to send him some very positive energy for the best to turn out, because he has nothing to do with his father's campaign. So we have to make that very clear. So I am going to end this now. I will be hopefully soon recording some more things. So be sure to subscribe, be sure to like, and I will see you the next time.